Okay, picture this. You're standing at the bottom of one of the tallest skyscrapers in the entire world. Now, imagine climbing it, but with no ropes, no safety gear, nothing but your own two hands. Well, that's exactly what Alex Honnold did. We're going to dive into the incredible story of his free solo of Taipei 101 and break down how in the world he pulled it off.
So, what does it actually take to do something like that? I mean, it's a question that pushes the absolute limits of what we think is humanly possible. We're going to explore the whole story, the dream he had for over a decade, the crazy challenges of the building itself, and yeah, the insane pressure of doing it all with the whole world watching, live.
So, first up, a decade-long dream. And you gotta understand, this wasn't some random, spur of the moment idea. No way. For Honnold, climbing Taipei 101 was this long burning ambition, something that was on his mind for over 10 years.
He actually said it himself. He saw the building more than a decade ago, and his first thought was basically, wow, that would be amazing to climb. So, right from the get go, he wasn't just seeing a cool piece of architecture, he was seeing a line, a challenge, a massive adventure just sitting there.
And let's be real, if anyone was gonna even think about attempting this, it would be Alex Honnold. This is the guy from the Oscar-winning film Free Solo, the one who climbed Yosemite's El Capitan without ropes. That feat alone pretty much made him the most famous free soloist on the planet, so he's got the resume, to say the least. But what's really interesting here is his patience. I mean, he could have tried to do this illegally years ago, but he didn't. He chose to wait for over a decade to get official permission. He said it was out of respect for the building. That tells you a lot about his mindset. It wasn't just about conquering it.
So let's get into the climb itself. Section 2, the Urban Everest. What made Taipei 101 so special? Well, it wasn't just tall. It was like this giant vertical puzzle, a true monster of a climb, right in the middle of a city. First, let's just try to get a handle on the sheer scale of this thing. We're talking 508 meters. That's over 1,667 feet. Straight up. To give you some perspective, that's like stacking 3 Washington monuments on top of each other. It was actually the first skyscraper ever to be taller than half a kilometer. It's just massive. And yup, 101 floors. Can you imagine that? Just climbing past window after window after window for 101 floors. The whole time, the ground is just getting smaller and smaller. Every floor you pass is another step further away from safety. And get this, he did the whole thing in just 90 minutes, an hour and a half. That is just nonstop, perfect physical and mental execution. Think about it. Every single move, every handhold, every foot placement had to be flawless. There is zero room for error. None. Now, the real crux of the climb was this middle section, these bamboo boxes. This part spanned 64 floors and was broken into 8 different segments, and each one was steep, like overhanging, actively trying to pull you off the wall. So he had to muscle through these incredibly tough sections, and the only rest he got were these tiny little balconies in between. That's where he could shake out his arms, catch his breath, and get ready for the next brutal push. This was the real test. Okay, so the next piece of this puzzle is something that made this climb totally different from anything he'd done before. The audience. This wasn't some quiet climb out in the middle of nowhere. This was a live global event. Yeah, the whole world was literally watching this go down live on Netflix. Can you imagine that pressure? And as if that wasn't enough, it was supposed to happen a day earlier, but it got delayed by rain. So that just amped up the tension and the waiting even more. And you really can't overstate how different this was from his other big climbs. El Capitan, that was just him, alone, against a giant piece of rock in the quiet wilderness. But Taipei 101, that was a public performance. He had huge crowds below cheering him on and millions more glued to their screens all over the globe. So how did he deal with all that? You'd think it would be terrifying. But he said that instead of feeling all this pressure, the vibe from the crowd actually made it feel festive, like everyone was just there having a good time and supporting him. What an amazing way to frame that in your head. So, let's move on to the moment everyone was waiting for, the summit and the view. He took all that energy from the crowd and he just kept going. After 10 years of dreaming about it and 90 minutes of pure focus, he made it to the top. And his first words up there? What an incredible position. What a beautiful way to see Taipei.
You can just hear the awe in his voice, right? For an hour and a half, his whole world was just the metal and glass inches from his face. And then suddenly he could look out and see everything. He earned that view for sure. And this wasn't just a big deal in the climbing world. The president of Taiwan actually congratulated him, saying that the whole event put the country's warmth and passion on display for the entire world to see. But as you can probably guess, when you do something this public and this dangerous, it's going to stir up some controversy. And it definitely did. Not everyone was cheering. The reaction was really split right down the middle. On one hand, you had tons of people who were completely inspired. But on the other, you had critics asking some really tough ethical questions. They called the live broadcast things like ghoulish and irresponsible, basically saying it was wrong to turn something so high stakes, something that could have ended tragically, into live entertainment. Honnold had his own take on it, of course. He basically said that people find the inspiration they need from something like this. He hoped that for many, watching him was the kick they need to go after whatever it is they want to do in their own life. A kind of reminder that our time isn't unlimited. And that really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Honnold's climb was his own, very extreme, personal challenge. But it makes you think, if you are really reminded that your time is finite, what challenge would you take on?